Someone switched the hard drive. The desperate cry echoed through the soaring glass atrium of Carter Dynamics so suddenly that every conversation stopped, as though the entire building had forgotten how to breathe. Hundreds of executives, investors, engineers, journalists, and guests stood frozen beneath towering digital displays that had been counting down to the biggest product launch in the company's history. Cameras remained aimed at the brightly lit stage where Nathan Carter, the white billionaire founder and chief executive officer, was only seconds away from unveiling a revolutionary cybersecurity platform expected to reshape the industry. Instead of applause, silence rolled through the auditorium like an invisible wave. Standing near the entrance was an 8-year-old black girl with neatly braided hair, a faded navy backpack hanging from one shoulder, and wide brown eyes filled with urgency rather than fear. She was breathing so hard it looked as though she had crossed half of downtown Austin without stopping. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "Please do not connect it," she called again, staring directly at the polished silver equipment case resting beside the demonstration console. "That is not the real one." Security personnel exchanged uncertain glances. One stepped forward carefully, unsure whether to comfort the child or escort her outside. Several board members frowned with visible annoyance, believing the interruption was nothing more than an unfortunate misunderstanding. A television producer quietly motioned for every camera to keep recording because something unexpected was unfolding before their eyes. Nathan remained completely still. Years of leading billion-dollar negotiations had taught him that panic often revealed less than quiet observation. He slowly stepped away from the podium, leaving behind the prepared speech he had rehearsed for weeks. Every polished shoe striking the marble floor echoed across the silent room. As he approached the little girl, he noticed something unusual. She was not searching for attention. She was not looking toward the cameras. She never once glanced at the crowd surrounding her. Her eyes never left the silver case. It was as though everything else inside the building had disappeared. Nathan stopped a respectful distance away and lowered himself until they were nearly eye level. "What is your name?" he asked in a calm voice that immediately softened the tension surrounding them. "Ava Brooks," she answered. "How old are you, Ava?" 8. "Did someone ask you to come here today?" She shook her head. "No, sir." "Did anyone tell you to interrupt this presentation?" "No, sir." Nathan studied her expression for another long moment. There were tears gathering in her eyes, but they were not tears of embarrassment. They were the tears of someone desperately hoping to prevent something terrible from happening before it was too late. Behind Nathan, Victor Hale, the company's respected chief technology officer, stepped forward with an easy smile. "Nathan," he said warmly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "she is only a frightened child. We have an audience waiting and investors watching around the world. Security can help her after the demonstration." A few directors nodded immediately. One investor quietly checked his watch. Another whispered that the live broadcast had already begun. Nathan heard every word, yet his attention remained fixed on Ava. "Tell me," he said gently, "why are you so certain?" Ava swallowed hard before answering. "Because yesterday I saw someone change it." Those words spread through the auditorium faster than any announcement could have. Reporters instinctively raised their microphones. Engineers exchanged confused looks. Victor's smile remained perfectly composed, but Nathan noticed the smallest hesitation before he spoke again. "Children sometimes misunderstand what they see around technical equipment," Victor said with reassuring confidence. "Our laboratories move prototypes every day." Ava shook her head firmly. "Not like that." Nathan remained silent, encouraging her to continue. "The man kept looking behind him," she whispered. He waited until the hallway was empty. Then he opened the silver case and took one hard drive out. He put another one inside. They looked almost the same, but the first one had a tiny blue sticker on the corner. Nathan's eyes narrowed slightly. Daniel Ross, the company's director of cybersecurity, happened to be standing near the demonstration servers. His expression changed almost immediately. Blue inventory markers were only attached to original engineering prototypes. Very few people outside the security division even knew they existed. Daniel slowly stepped toward the stage without taking his eyes off the silver case. "Mr. Carter," he said carefully, "I recommend verifying the prototype before we continue." Victor laughed softly. "Daniel, this is hardly necessary." Daniel did not argue. He simply looked at Nathan. Verification will take less than 2 minutes. The silence grew heavier. Every investor watched the billionaire whose next decision could either preserve the carefully planned launch or delay an event that had cost millions of dollars to prepare. Nathan looked once more at Ava. "Why did you come all this way instead of telling another adult?" Her answer came so quietly that everyone leaned forward to hear it. "Because I was afraid nobody would believe me." Nathan slowly turned toward the audience. "Then today," he said with calm certainty, "we are going to make sure we do." Before anyone could respond, a faint electronic notification sounded somewhere beneath the demonstration platform. Most people ignored it completely. Ava did not. Her eyes widened as she instinctively stepped backward, clutching her worn backpack against her chest. "It started," she whispered. "We are already running out of time." Daniel Ross walked toward the silver equipment case with measured confidence, while the enormous auditorium remained wrapped in complete silence. The giant countdown clock above the stage continued moving, unaware that the product launch it had been measuring was no longer the most important event unfolding inside the building. Nathan Carter stood beside Ava Brooks, his attention divided between the frightened little girl and the polished case resting beneath the bright presentation lights. Victor Hale maintained his calm smile, folding his hands comfortably as though nothing unusual had happened. "Nathan," Victor said evenly, "every minute we delay costs this company credibility. We have customers watching from around the world." Nathan answered without taking his eyes off the case. "Credibility begins with certainty." Daniel entered a security code, released the reinforced locks, and slowly lifted the lid. Inside, the sleek black hard drive rested exactly where everyone expected it to be. Several executives quietly sighed with relief. One investor leaned toward another and whispered that the misunderstanding would soon be over. Ava, however, stared at the drive without blinking. "That is not the same one," she said softly. Daniel carefully slipped on protective gloves before lifting the hard drive from its foam compartment. He rotated it beneath the overhead lights while examining every edge with practiced precision. For several long seconds, he remained completely silent. Nathan noticed the subtle change in Daniel's expression. "What do you see?" Daniel continued studying the device. "The housing appears authentic." Victor smiled immediately. "Exactly." Daniel gently turned the drive over once more. "But appearances are not verification." From his equipment case, he removed a compact inspection light that emitted a narrow blue beam. As the light passed across the underside of the hard drive, faint laser markings slowly became visible. Daniel leaned closer. His eyes narrowed. "That is unusual." Nathan stepped beside him. "Explain." Daniel pointed toward a sequence of engraved numbers. Every engineering prototype produced by Carter Dynamics follows the same internal identification structure. This sequence does not. A quiet murmur spread through the audience. Victor responded almost instantly. "Manufacturing variations happen all the time." Daniel calmly shook his head. "Not on internally produced prototypes." He placed the drive on an anti-static workstation and connected it to an isolated forensic laptop that had never touched the company's operational network. The massive presentation screens instantly displayed the diagnostic interface for everyone in the auditorium to see. Lines of encrypted information scrolled across the monitors, while software examined the hardware without activating any of its operational functions. Green indicators appeared one after another. Some executives relaxed again. Then a single indicator suddenly turned yellow. Seconds later, another warning followed. A soft electronic tone echoed through the room. Daniel remained perfectly calm. "There is an inconsistency." Nathan folded his arms. "Can you identify it?" Daniel enlarged one section of the diagnostic report. "The encryption certificates are valid." Victor nodded confidently. "Which means the drive is genuine." Daniel looked at him briefly before continuing. "The certificates are genuine. The manufacturing timeline is not." Nathan studied the screen. "What does that mean?" Daniel highlighted one line hidden deep within the metadata. "According to this record, the drive was assembled less than 12 hours ago." Several engineers looked at one another with visible concern. Nathan frowned. "Our prototype has been secured inside this building for months." "Correct," Daniel replied. "Someone successfully duplicated nearly every security layer but overlooked the production history." Ava quietly tightened her grip on the straps of her worn backpack. She remembered the tiny blue inventory sticker she had seen the previous afternoon, and she knew the drive on the table no longer carried it. Daniel continued searching through the forensic report until another detail appeared. He became unusually still. Nathan. Yes. There is no laboratory activation record. Nathan looked up immediately. Every authentic prototype should have one. Daniel nodded. Exactly. This device has no evidence of ever entering our engineering laboratory before today. Complete silence settled across the auditorium. Nathan slowly looked toward the silver case, then back at Ava. Her warning had not come from imagination. It had come from careful observation. Victor finally spoke again, his voice remaining controlled although noticeably firmer than before. Perhaps the laboratory database failed to synchronize. Daniel answered calmly. The activation registry is physically written into protected hardware memory. It cannot disappear because of a network synchronization issue. Nathan took one slow breath. Before addressing the audience, the demonstration is suspended until further notice. Audible gasps filled the room. Investors immediately began checking their phones while reporters whispered excitedly into their microphones. Victor stepped closer. Nathan, this decision could cost us millions of dollars. Nathan met his eyes without hesitation. Launching a system we cannot verify could cost something far more valuable than money. Before anyone could respond, the same faint electronic notification sounded again beneath the demonstration platform. This time Daniel heard it too. He quickly looked toward the monitoring console connected to the isolated workstation. A small timer had quietly appeared in the corner of the screen, counting downward from 59 minutes. Daniel's expression changed instantly. Nathan, he said in a low voice, whatever this device was designed to do, it was never supposed to wait for us to examine it. It was designed to activate on a schedule. Daniel Ross immediately disconnected the forensic workstation from every external interface before the countdown could trigger anything beyond the isolated system. The giant presentation screens still displayed the diagnostic information, but now every engineer in the auditorium understood they were looking at more than a simple equipment mismatch. Nathan Carter remained remarkably calm despite the growing tension surrounding him. Years of leading one of America's most trusted cybersecurity companies had taught him that fear clouded judgment while patience revealed patterns. He looked toward Daniel. Can the timer be stopped? Daniel studied the display carefully. Not safely. We should observe it instead of interfering with it. Victor Hale folded his arms and forced a reassuring smile toward the nervous investors. This appears to be nothing more than corrupted firmware. We are delaying an international launch over a laboratory error. Nathan glanced toward him without changing expression. Then we will lose a few hours. He paused before continuing. If you are wrong, we could lose much more. The room fell silent once again. Ava Brooks quietly stepped closer to the demonstration platform, her worn backpack resting against her shoulder. She never looked at the timer. Instead, she looked beneath the polished stage where the faint electronic tone had originated. Nathan noticed her attention immediately. What is it? He asked softly. Ava hesitated before answering. Yesterday, after the man switched the hard drive, he looked under the table for a second. Daniel turned toward the stage. Under the table? Ava nodded. I thought he dropped something, but he smiled before he walked away. Daniel immediately crouched beside the demonstration platform. Hidden behind the decorative panel beneath the polished table surface, he noticed an unusually thin communication cable leading toward a compact wireless module no larger than a deck of playing cards. It had been carefully attached behind the support frame where almost no one would ever think to look. Nathan, Daniel said quietly, this device was not part of the original installation. Several engineers hurried forward. One quickly checked the equipment inventory stored on his tablet. He is right, the engineer said. There is no record of this transmitter. Daniel carefully photographed the device before touching anything. If we remove it too quickly, we could destroy valuable evidence. Nathan nodded. Document everything first. Reporters watched from behind the security barrier, unable to hear every technical detail, but fully aware that the atmosphere had shifted from product launch to active investigation. Daniel connected a portable signal analyzer without disturbing the hidden transmitter. Within seconds, colorful graphs appeared across the forensic display. It is broadcasting, he said. Nathan frowned. To where? Daniel slowly shook his head. Not outside the building. He enlarged the signal strength indicator. The receiving device appears to be somewhere inside headquarters. Victor stepped forward with visible impatience. Wireless equipment is installed throughout this building. That proves nothing. Daniel remained focused on the analysis. Perhaps. He continued examining the transmission until another detail appeared. This device only becomes active when the counterfeit hard drive is nearby. Nathan folded his arms. So they were designed to work together. Exactly. Ava quietly watched the glowing charts before speaking again. The man checked his watch after he looked under the table. Daniel looked toward her. Are you certain? She nodded. I remember because his watch had a blue face. It looked shiny when the lights came through the windows. Nathan slowly turned toward the executives seated in the front row. Most appeared confused. A few looked worried. Victor alone remained unusually composed. Daniel continued tracing the wireless signal until a three-dimensional floor map appeared across the screen. A blinking indicator highlighted the demonstration stage, while another blinking point appeared elsewhere inside the building. The distance between them constantly updated as both signals exchanged encrypted information. Daniel enlarged the map. The second device is moving. Nathan stepped closer. Where? Daniel tracked the blinking point as it passed through the executive corridor, leading toward the secure engineering offices. Someone is carrying it. Security personnel immediately looked toward Nathan for instructions. He considered the situation carefully before answering. Do not alert anyone. If the person realizes we found the transmitter, they may abandon whatever leads us to the truth. Daniel nodded in agreement. We should observe first. Nathan turned toward Ava with quiet gratitude. You noticed one small movement that everyone else ignored. Ava looked down shyly. I just remembered it. Nathan smiled gently. Sometimes remembering one honest detail changes everything. At that exact moment, the moving signal suddenly stopped. Daniel enlarged the floor map once more. The blinking indicator now rested inside the executive technology wing, where only a handful of senior employees had authorized access. Then another notification quietly appeared across the forensic display. A secure authentication request had just been initiated from the same location, waiting for the countdown to reach 0 before completing its final instruction. Nathan looked steadily at the glowing timer, then toward the hallway leading deeper into the building. For the first time that morning, he realized the counterfeit hard drive had never been the true objective. It was only the first piece of a much larger plan that was still unfolding in real time. The blinking indicator remained motionless on Daniel Ross's digital floor map, while the silent countdown continued falling 1 second at a time. 48 minutes remained. Nathan Carter studied the glowing display without saying a word. Around him, the once celebratory auditorium had transformed into a carefully controlled command center. Investors remained seated under the supervision of company staff. Reporters were asked to stay behind security barriers, and engineers quietly disconnected every demonstration system from the building's operational network. Nobody knew exactly what would happen when the timer reached 0. That uncertainty made every passing second feel heavier than the last. Daniel enlarged the executive floor map again. The signal has not moved for almost 3 minutes, he said. Nathan looked toward the highlighted office. Who works there? Daniel checked the access registry. It is part of the executive technology suite. He paused. 3 people have permanent authorization. Victor Hale, myself, and you. Nathan slowly folded his arms. Then someone either has executive access or wants us to believe they do. Ava Brooks stood quietly beside the demonstration platform, her attention fixed not on the glowing monitors, but on the hallway leading away from the auditorium. She gently tugged on the strap of her worn backpack before speaking. Yesterday, after the man switched the hard drive, another person walked past the hallway. Nathan turned toward her immediately. Can you remember anything else? Ava closed her eyes for several seconds. I was scared yesterday. Something good was about to happen. Nathan exchanged a thoughtful glance with Daniel. Whoever had designed this operation expected events to unfold according to a precise schedule. The counterfeit hard drive, the hidden transmitter, and the countdown all depended on timing rather than chance. Nathan quietly addressed the security manager standing nearby. I want 2 officers positioned outside the executive technology suite. The manager nodded. Should they make contact? No. They are only observing. Nobody enters. Nobody leaves unless I approve it. The officers departed immediately without drawing attention from the guests still gathered inside the auditorium. Daniel continued examining the hidden transmitter beneath the demonstration platform. Another stream of encrypted communication appeared across the forensic display. "Nathan," he said softly. "The transmitter just received another synchronization request." Nathan looked at the timer. "Can you determine where it originated?" Daniel traced the incoming signal through the building's internal wireless infrastructure. Colored pathways spread across the floor plan before converging on the same executive technology suite highlighted moments earlier. "Same location," Daniel confirmed. "Whatever is waiting there is still active." Victor Hale stepped forward with controlled confidence. "Nathan, this has gone far enough. We are allowing speculation to replace facts. We should secure the equipment and continue the investigation after today's event." Nathan calmly faced him. "If someone built this system to activate during today's presentation, postponing the investigation would be exactly what they hoped we would do." Victor held Nathan's gaze for a long moment before quietly stepping back. Ava watched the exchange without speaking. Something about Victor's expression reminded her of the man she had seen the day before. She could not explain why. She only knew the same feeling had returned. Daniel suddenly noticed another anomaly buried inside the transmitter's communication history. "There is a repeating command." Nathan stepped beside him. "What kind?" Daniel enlarged the recovered data. "It is requesting executive authorization every 60 seconds. Nathan frowned. "Authorization for what?" Daniel slowly exhaled. "The request is incomplete because the receiving device has not answered yet. It is waiting for someone to approve the final sequence." Nathan looked around the enormous auditorium filled with people who had arrived expecting celebration instead of uncertainty. Then he turned back toward Ava. "Yesterday, did you see anyone touch this stage after the hard drive was changed?" Ava thought carefully before answering. "Only one person." Daniel looked up immediately. "Who?" She hesitated. "I never saw his face. He wore a company jacket and carried a tablet. He bent down near the table for just a few seconds. I thought he was checking the wires." Daniel glanced beneath the demonstration platform where the hidden transmitter had been discovered. That was probably when this device was installed. Nathan nodded slowly. The timeline was becoming clearer. One person replaced the counterfeit hard drive. Another secretly attached the transmitter. A third device waited somewhere inside the executive offices for the countdown to reach 0. The operation had been carefully divided so that no single participant appeared connected to Eva. Remained close beside Nathan after he quietly assured her that she would not be left alone. The polished corridor stretched ahead beneath bright recessed lighting, its glass walls reflecting rows of framed patents, innovation awards, and photographs celebrating decades of technological breakthroughs. On any other day, the floor would have been busy with engineers preparing demonstrations and executives discussing strategy. Now it felt almost abandoned.